Arsenal beat Olympiacos to make it 2 wins out of 2 in the Champions League and to continue on their brilliant form in all competitions. Now, the standout player of the match, in my opinion, was Martin Odegaard. I think this is one of his best performances in over a year for the club, and in this video we're going to talk about how his role really allowed him to dictate the game and how Arsenal can take this into the future to make him and the team even better. So let's get into it. Now, I don't think it's a secret, this isn't really a surprise. Martin Odegaard was undoubtedly man the match in the game against Olympiacos. Not only was he the most influential player of the game, having the most touches, having the second most passes in the game behind Zubimendi, he was also a creative phenom, being a part of the most XG in the game and helping Arsenal get the win in the end, which I think he deserved a lot more from the game than he got. Now, first of all, I want to look into where Odegaard was picking up the ball in comparison to the touch map. Now, if you look at this touch map, there's two interesting aspects of it. Of course, it is still situated more to the right-hand side, although he definitely roams a lot more in this game. You can see there's pockets that he's picking up on the left, and we will go into some specific moments. But in my opinion, he is in the final third in this sort of middle ground between the defence and the midfield, and also behind the entire team, being the first phase in build-up a lot of the time, and having a lot of touches in the defensive third to allow Arsenal to build up. And this is exactly what Odegaard does incredibly well. Now, Odegaard over his time at Arsenal has had a lot of criticism by me and other people that he isn't quite that creative player that people genuinely probably think he is. I think there has been a common misconception of people thinking he's a 10. He is just not. He is a natural 8. He's an all-phase player, and he should be used like that at the end of the day. And what I mean by that is that not only can he do this defensive work, not only can he pick the ball up in the midfield third and progress the ball, but he also can create occasionally. He's not someone that you want to be that natural first time creative player around him, especially with a least amount of runners which I've had before this season, but he can do it in certain games. He can do it against certain opponents, and he can do anything you want. And I think this game showed that at all levels. Now, in this game, our midfield worked in specific ways, be it Zubimendi, Merino and Odegaard, and they all kind of worked off where Odegaard was going. Like we said, Odegaard definitely had much more freedom in his role in this game. This meant that sometimes in order to build up, which our build up was incredible, Olympiacos did actually press us quite a lot, and we were managed to keep the ball very well and get it out and create a lot of chances. Although the goal scoring and the game didn't look the most fun, we genuinely should have scored more, probably could have conceded as well with Olympiacos' good chances, but there was a certain level of not trying the best. I think we were still in gear 2 the entire time. However, Odegaard came deeper in quite a lot of times, and we kept seeing this reverse pass by him where he goes straight across the line over and over again. There's a few times, I think one where Raya puts the ball into him and Odegaard shifts the ball quickly out wide and we get into space there. But there's a few times as well where we're deeper in build up, they're pressing us really well, we need that extra man, and instead of getting Merino to always come back because that would be predictable, there is times that Odegaard comes back and quickly shifts that ball across. This kept getting us into overloads in the positions, and I do think this is very helpful. We should have scored from the one early on where Martinelli has that header and it's a great cross by Miles, which Odegaard does create, and there's a few other ones where we don't necessarily get the chance completely because Odegaard also the guy that kind of needs to be in that final third, but with someone like Eze you would think that would work a little bit better. Now, he is not the only person that had to come back for the team. As we said multiple times, Zubimendi is rogue sometimes and just does incredible risky passes, so he is a bit pushed up as well in his positioning. But there's also times when Merino came deeper and had to work closely with the ball. He is not someone that's going to do these 30-yard passes. He is going to be much more simpler in these ways. However, one of these big chances came in the first half quite early on where we were fantastic in the first 20 minutes. Merino receives the ball, they don't put enough pressure on him, he's inside the pocket, and Odegaard just sticks to his position in that front line like you expect him to do. But unlike it being towards his right hand side, which we have had problems with it before, he was much more central, and this allowed that when he got the ball in these areas he was able to dribble past players that came at him aggressively and take the ball down the left hand side if that was what was the best thing entailed in that time. Now, this was not the only time this happened. Later on in the game you see Declan Rice does brilliantly in defensive areas. We bait the press in really hard, and then he switches the ball incredibly well quickly into Odegaard, who's in that central area. He has managed to turn brilliantly across the player and then runs into that space, being a 4v3, which is another opportunity which we probably should score from. But nevertheless, it is one of them moments where we quickly switch it, we quickly bait the press in a certain aspect, and Odegaard under pressure can receive the ball, turn brilliantly. I thought his dribbling and turning was exceptional in this game, and then run with the ball. This is something we know Eze can do, we know other players can do as well, but Odegaard hasn't really shown this brilliant brilliant dribbling nature and at least his turning nature in a very long time. Not only do I think he covered the ground really well, he just felt so much more lively. He was running around in great areas, he was making clear indications that was helping the team in big areas, and that's why you see him having the most influence on the game, which is a good thing. We need Odegaard getting the most touches, because especially when you get into these like deeper areas in the right side or the left side, or you are getting pressed really intently, we have said it multiple times, I've never had an issue with Odegaard on the ball in deeper areas. He is so comfortable with it, he finds ways to get out of difficult situations with 3 or 4 players around him, and he's always incredible at retaining possession. And there's a few times in this game you think he's going to lose it, he holds the players off, and in the end he just kind of waits and finds a pass out of the situations all the time. And this is what really helps Arsenal build up in these defensive areas and allow pressure to be on them, because Odegaard is so excellent at it. However, all of that little things has been very important, and I don't think Odegaard has been bad at that. I think he's definitely improved in this game compared to last year, but I don't think it's necessarily like a night and day thing over that. What was night and day in this game, however, was Odegaard's execution of the passes were much better. Now, on his pass completions, they are very low, and a lot of our players actually are quite low ones because we were trying more risks, and I think that is one of the reasons why he had such a high XG in terms of creating chances from open play for once. But Odegaard in this game, his through balls 90% of the time were perfect and exactly what you want there to be. And I think there's a clear disparity in his passing between the right hand side and the left hand side, and it is a big reason why we want him to roam way more to the left a lot more. I don't think he needs to start on this left centre mid spot. I prefer him having a more freer roam role, but he still has to be able to go down this side a lot more. And what I mean by that is there is a few situations in this game where he does good passes into Saka when he came on that right hand side, and some good passes into the lines, but there's also a few times where he seems still a little bit uncomfortable with making that pass maybe across his body to the right hand side with his left foot. I think there's one where Martinelli runs through, makes a good run, and he hits it a little bit too wide, a little bit too hard into this right hand side where Martinelli can't receive. And I know Odegaard has had a history of making these really good passes, and I'm not saying he's bad at that by any means, but it's quite clear that he prefers being the guy that passes inside, interiorly to him and across his body, rather than being a guy that has to cut across. This is a lot of the time where you see him make Travella passes with his left foot, which aren't fantastic, don't get me, but it's obviously a lot more of a riskier technique than someone who would just have a right foot or be able to maybe play that ball across them. Now, in this game, Odegaard, a lot of the passes that he did were definitely towards his left-hand side, and they were incredible. Obviously, the first goal, like we mentioned, he rides the tackle really well, he gets into a great position, but this ball is perfect. Like we've said before, make risks for Woklz. We don't want you playing the simple pass out wide all the time. This is one of them situations where Woklz is running, allow him to win that 50-50 against the defenders. The pass is excellent, it's in a great area, and Woklz doesn't even take a touch and takes out 2 players with fantastic strength and ends up getting a shot away, which the keeper saves. Martinelli follows up, and that was our first goal, which was yet again an incredible move. But that's not the only one. There was multiple times in that first half and in the second half where Odegaard was coming into the channel, they were not pressing him, and he was taking his time and putting that ball incredibly well in behind. Woklz, in my opinion, should have definitely scored in this game. I think he had well enough chances to do better in, and I think Odegaard's passing was excellent, but the weight of ball by Odegaard in a lot of these situations was brilliant. And there was a couple in the first half where he did maybe miss like half a chance with a poor pass, maybe it wasn't weighted the best, which we've seen from Odegaard a lot over the last year and a half. But because there were so many good passes in this game, and he definitely deserved more than he got in terms of goals and assists, I don't think we can blame him. He is a guy that's going to take these risks, they're not always going to play off, and if he makes these great passes, that is what he's there to do. And guess what? All of these big passes are in deeper areas rather than being necessarily in the straight final third, and more importantly on this left hand side. And later on in the game, we've all been talking about it online, I've seen it. Obviously, Saka moved a little bit to the left when Eze and Saka came on. You know, they switched a lot, which we love, and we love Saka having a go at the left. That's different, that's new. And the second goal that we score yet again is a simple pass into Odegaard. Straight away, you can tell by Saka's movement that Odegaard's going to pass it back into him. I actually thought it was a little bit late when I first was watching it, because I just thought, well, when's that pass coming in? But the weight of pass by Odegaard is perfect yet again into Saka, and Saka does brilliantly. Maybe we'll have to talk about him in left wing. That's certainly an interesting development. And it's that same right-hand dynamic that we've been going on about for ages and ages, Odegaard and Saka doing it on the left-hand side. And it's not only just Saka. Odegaard has much more realization in this game with Woklz. I think he really did facilitate him well. There's a few times as well he makes the right decision in the final third, which we have been missing. Like the pass to Trossard when he gets on the break is the right decision. Trossard should do better. It's a good block in the end. And for me and for a lot of people that have been criticising the creative work of Arsenal over the last couple of weeks in the Newcastle game, in the Olympiacos game, I genuinely think that was not a problem. Maybe there was other problems. Finishing, I think, is definitely up there. We've just got to be more efficient within the box, and maybe complacency. Sometimes, especially in this game, I felt like we just didn't really try as hard as we could have, and I get it, but we only were 1-0 up, and there was always a risk there. But in terms of creative work, we created a lot of chances in both of these games. Now, Odegaard obviously came on and changed the game against Newcastle, I felt like, and sometimes it is as simple as allowing him to roam a little bit more, allow Odegaard to be smart on the ball and take the opportunity himself. Now, while not the highlight as well in this game, I do want to mention some of the defensive work that Martin Odegaard put in as well, because I do think, yet again, you look at his defensive stats, he is one of the most defensive involved players that we have. And yet again, it was like in them defensive areas, Odegaard was so smart, I felt like, at making sure he intercepted really well, got in front of players and just calmed everything down. There can be zero complaints about his work rate in this game as well, because 8 recoveries he made in the end. He was running back, helping the team all the time, leading people in the press a lot, even though we didn't press like as intently as we have in other games. And he was just being very intelligent. And it's one of them games where I just think Odegaard got a lot of his timings right, which we have complained about maybe it being a bit off for a while. He just technically looked fantastic on the pitch, and he should have scored as well. He got very unlucky that the keeper does a brilliant save when he ran in and did brilliant work. But that's what I mean. Odegaard in this game deserved 3 or 4 goals and assists. He fortunately got one with Saka in the last minute, which we take, but that is exactly what we need. And talking about the future of Arsenal, like we've gone on about it a lot with Eze and Odegaard maybe being working together. I think there's some really interesting things you can do with Eze and Saka as well, rotating them, which we saw in this game. Maybe play Eze as a secondary striker at times, which is interesting. But Odegaard dictating the play from deeper is exactly what we need, and I genuinely think that going into the future, he is a player that on this form we will have. And I think people need to remember that this guy isn't bad. He's just struggled a long time to maybe do them sort of end product things, and in this game it finally all came together. Now let me know in the comments what you guys think about Martin Odegaard's performance, and let me know what you think about this video in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you in the next one.